The ground shook with the last echo of battle. Smoke drifted through the air, mixing with the sharp scent of burnt wood and blood. Bodies lay scattered across the broken land, both elf and beast, side by side. The war had lasted 10 long years, and now it was finally over. Lindra, a female elf in gold armor, stood among the ruins. Her blonde hair was tied back, her face marked with sweat, ash, and pain. Her eyes moved slowly across the field. She had seen many battles, but this one had changed something deep inside her. Next to her stood Thalen, an elf man with dark gray hair and gold armor like hers. His sword hung at his side, chipped and covered in dried blood. He looked at her, then back at the silent field. "We won," Thalen said quietly. His voice didn't carry joy. Lindra shook her head. "We survived," she replied. The silence was heavy. No cheers, no songs, only the quiet wind brushing through the torn flags and broken shields. From the edge of the battlefield, someone walked toward them. Not an elf, not a soldier. It was a human. Lindra raised her weapon, but Thelen gently lowered her hand. "Wait," he said. The human walked slowly, carefully stepping over fallen weapons. He wore a simple cloak, torn at the edges. No armor, no sword. His hands were open, raised to show he meant no harm. "My name is Karen," he said. His voice was calm, but there was sadness in it. "I don't want to fight." Lindra narrowed her eyes. "This is no place for you, human. Go home." Karen looked at her, then at the elves behind her. His gaze was full of something neither of them expected: hope. "I came because someone has to end this," he said. "I know I'm just one man. I don't have magic, and I'm not part of your world. But I know how this war started, and I know it doesn't have to end with more death." Thelen stepped forward. "You think you can stop a war with words?" Karen reached into his cloak and pulled out a folded letter. He held it up carefully. "I carry her last message, Elira's message." Lindra's eyes widened. That name, Elira, was almost a whisper now among the elves. She had been a healer, a kind soul, and one of the first to believe peace was possible. But she was gone, killed in the early days of the war. Karen continued, "She saved my life, and before she died, she asked me to carry her words to you." The two elves looked at each other, uncertain. The battle was over, but perhaps the real fight, the fight for peace, was just beginning. Karen sat by the remains of a broken wall, resting after his long walk. His boots were torn, his hands dirty, but he didn't care. In the distance, elves moved carefully through the ruins, helping the wounded and searching for survivors. None of them came close to him. They looked, but did not speak. He was a human, and that made him different. He understood their silence. For 10 years, humans and elves had been enemies. Trust did not return overnight, but Karen was not here to be trusted. He was here to keep a promise. As he waited, he pulled the old letter from his cloak. The edges were worn and soft from being folded too many times. The ink had faded, but he knew every word by heart. Elira had written it with shaking hands, her final message before she was taken. "If they will not listen to each other," she had told him, "then let them hear from someone who has seen both sides." Karen was that someone. Years ago, before the war became cruel and bloody, Karen had been caught in a skirmish near the border. Wounded and left behind, he would have died if Elira had not found him. She was young, soft-spoken, and gentle. Instead of leaving him to his fate, she carried him to a hidden hut deep in the woods. She healed him, fed him, and listened to his stories. She never asked for thanks, only one thing. "Promise me," she had said, "if the day ever comes when you can speak for peace, do not stay silent." That promise had brought Karen here. Not sword, not revenge, only a healer's words and the weight of her death. He looked up as footsteps approached. It was Lindra again. Her face was tired, but her hand no longer touched her weapon. "The letter," she said. "May I see it?" Karen nodded and handed it to her without a word. She opened it slowly. Thelen stood beside her, his arms crossed. They both read in silence. The words were simple. The Lyra had written about the pain of war, the way it changed people. She spoke of how both sides had forgotten the reason they started fighting, and how hate had replaced memory. I still believe in peace, the letter ended, not through power, but through courage, the courage to listen. Lindra's fingers shook as she folded the paper. This was real. Karen nodded. I watched her write it. I was there when they came for her. She refused to run. Thelen looked away, his jaw tight. Karen stood. I don't expect forgiveness. But if her words can stop one more blade from falling, then I had to come. The wind blew gently through the broken trees. For the first time in many years, there was no scream, no fire, no orders to charge. There was only a human who had kept his promise, and two elves who began to wonder what came next. Kieran stayed near the Elven camp, watching quietly as the soldiers cleaned their weapons and tended to the wounded. Many still held doubt in their eyes. A human was not welcome here, yet Kieran had a reason to be. The letter from Lyra was only the start. He knew that to change the hearts of the elves, he had to share her story. The story of a healer who had given everything to save others, even those who called her enemy. One evening, Lindra invited him to the council tent. The elders sat around a long wooden table, their faces serious and tired. Lindra spoke softly. Karen says he has more to tell us, stories we have forgotten. The head elder, a tall elf with silver hair, motioned for him to begin. Karen took a deep breath. The Lyra was not just a healer. She was a symbol of hope. When the war started, she tried to bring both sides together. She treated all who were hurt, elf or human, without hate or fear. He paused, seeing the mixed emotions on their faces. Many called her a traitor. Some wanted her dead, but she believed peace was possible. She sent me this letter before she was taken. She asked me to carry her words to you. He unfolded another paper and read aloud. War is not victory. It is loss. Loss of what we once had. Loss of what could be. If we do not stop, all that is good will vanish. Thulin's dark gray hair fell over his eyes as he listened. He finally spoke, voice low. We fought because we thought it was right. To protect our homes, our families. Karen nodded. I understand. But Illyra believed that protecting those you love means more than war. It means forgiveness, courage, and the will to change. The elder raised a hand. And why should we believe a human? Your people have brought us pain. Karen met his gaze steadily. Because Illyra was one of you. Because she believed in peace even when it cost her life. He told them about the night Illyra saved him from death, how she risked everything to carry him to safety, how she had pleaded for the war to end before it was too late. Her legacy is not just a letter, Karen said quietly. It is a choice, to stop fighting, to heal, to remember what it means to be family. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lindra stood, her blonde hair catching the fading light. Her story must be told, she said firmly, not just by us, but by everyone. If we forget, the war will start again. Karen felt a spark inside him, a fragile hope. It was small, but it was real. As he left the tent, he looked back to see the elves beginning to share their own memories of Illyra. Stories of kindness, bravery, and the dream of peace. Karen knew this was just the beginning. The war was over, yes, but healing would take much longer. Still, for the first time, he believed it was possible. If you want to hear more stories that touch the heart, consider subscribing. Every story matters. Kieran left the council tent feeling heavier than before. Illyra's story had touched some hearts, but there was still much pain to heal. The war had left deep wounds, not only on the land but also on the spirits of those who had died. He decided to visit Sorrow Grove, a village destroyed early in the war. It was said that the place was haunted, not by evil, but by memories that could not rest. Kieran needed to see for himself. As he walked through the broken homes and charred trees, a cold wind whispered through the ruins. The silence was thick. He paused by a shattered well and looked around. He saw shadows moving between the ruins, not real shadows, but the spirits of those who had been lost. Children who had never grown up, mothers who waited for their sons, warriors who had fallen alone. Kieran knelt and spoke softly. "I have come to remember you, to carry your stories back to the living." A gentle voice seemed to answer him, a whisper in the wind. He closed his eyes and felt the weight of sorrow around him. He moved slowly, visiting each ruined house. In his mind, he saw the families who once lived there, the laughter, the meals shared, the quiet nights before the war tore everything apart. He spoke their names aloud, one by one. The names of those who would never come home. Mira, the blacksmith's daughter. Jaren, the hunter who loved the woods. Alina, the healer who tried to save them all. His voice cracked, but he did not stop. Lindra and Thalen had followed quietly. They watched as Kieran honored the lost, seeing the pain that he carried for a people not his own. After a long moment, Lindra stepped forward. "They need to be remembered," she said, "not as enemies, but as lives taken by war." Kieran nodded. "If their memories fade, then this war will mean nothing. If we forget, we are doomed to repeat it." The three of them stood together in Sorrow Grove, surrounded by ghosts of the past. Kieran felt a quiet strength growing inside him. He was no longer just a stranger here. He was a keeper of stories. That night, around the campfire, Kieran shared what he had seen. The elves listened in silence, some with tears on their cheeks. "This is why we must stop fighting," he said, "not just for ourselves, but for those who cannot speak anymore." Thalen lowered his head. "Maybe the war is over, but the pain will live on unless we face it." Lindra reached out and touched Kieran's arm. "Thank you for reminding us." Kieran smiled faintly, tired but hopeful. "I'm only doing what she asked. I'm only telling the truth." As the fire burned low, the camp grew quiet. A new understanding had begun to take root, one that might one day grow into peace. But it would not be easy. The ghosts of Sorrow Grove were still there, waiting to be heard, and Kieran was ready to listen. The morning after Kieran's visit to Sorrow Grove, the Elven camp was quieter than usual. The usual clatter of armor and sharp commands were replaced by soft voices and heavy thoughts. Lindra and Thalen walked together toward the great hall where the Queen of the Twilight Elves waited. The queen was an elegant woman with silver eyes and long hair that shimmered like moonlight. Her gold armor glinted softly as she stood before the ancient throne, her face unreadable. She had ruled through many wars, her strength known by all. When Lindra and Thalen entered, the queen did not speak at once. She looked at them, both with tired eyes. Then she asked simply, "What news?" Lindra stepped forward, holding the letter from Elira carefully in her hands. "A human carries her message. He has spoken to us of peace and forgiveness." The queen's gaze softened just a little. "Elira believed in peace," she said quietly, "but it was a dangerous dream." Kieran stood behind them, silent but watching. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was the first time the queen had acknowledged his presence. "We have lost so much," the queen continued. "Too much to simply forget." Her voice was low but strong. "How can we trust peace after all this pain?" Thalen answered, his voice steady but respectful. "Because if we do not try, there will be nothing left to protect." Elira's words remind us that mercy is stronger than the sword. The queen looked down at the sword at her feet, a beautiful weapon, yet worn and heavy from battle. She reached out slowly and picked it up. She held it for a long moment, then placed it down again. "I will take an oath," she said at last. "Not just as queen, but as a mother who has lost her children to this war." Her voice rose with quiet power. "I swear on the ash of the fallen, and the light of the dawn that we will lay down our arms. We will seek a new path, even if it is uncertain and hard. A hush fell over the hall. Lindra's eyes filled with tears. Thalen nodded, the weight on his shoulders lifting slightly. Karen stepped forward. "This is not the end of the journey," he said, "but it is the beginning. Together, we can build what war has destroyed." The queen looked at him with a small, sad smile. "You are a human, yet you carry the heart of an elf." She raised her hand, and the gathered elves placed their weapons on the floor before her. Swords, bows, and spears, all laid down in silence. "Let this oath be known to all," the queen declared. "The war is over. Peace will be our shield now." Outside the great hall, the sun broke through the clouds. Golden light spilled over the trees and fields, as if the world itself was breathing again. Karen watched the faces around him, some hopeful, some uncertain. He knew there would be challenges ahead. Old wounds would not heal overnight. But in that moment, he believed in the power of an oath made from ash and light, a promise that even the deepest pain could lead to new beginnings. News of the Queen's oath spread quickly through the Elven lands. Whispers of peace traveled from campfires to council halls, yet not everyone was ready to accept this change. The Day Elves, fierce warriors known for their strength and pride, remained doubtful. Their leader, King Valtheran, was the most unwilling. Valtheran was a tall elf with fiery eyes and hair like burning embers. His armor was decorated with red and gold, worn from years of battle. He had lost many loved ones in the war, and his heart was heavy with grief and anger. When Karen was brought before him, the king's gaze burned into the human's face. The room was cold and silent. The guards stood watch, tense. "Why are you here?" Valtheran demanded, his voice sharp. Karen met his eyes without fear. "To ask for peace." Valtheran laughed bitterly. "A human asking for peace. You expect me to believe your words." "I don't ask for your trust," Karen said calmly. "I only ask you to listen." Valtheran's expression hardened. "My daughter died protecting a human. Do you think that eases my pain?" Karen's heart clenched. He knew the story well. "Her name was Ariel," Valtheran said, his voice breaking. "She saved your life once, at great cost." Karen nodded slowly. She was brave. She believed peace was worth fighting for. Valtheran looked away, the fire in his eyes dimming for a moment. Then he spoke softly. "Why do you carry her pendant?" Karen reached into his cloak and pulled out a small flame-shaped pendant. It was worn and scratched but beautiful. "She gave it to me the night she saved me. It is her last wish, that this war ends." The king stared at the pendant, memories flooding his mind. The pain in his voice was clear. "If she were here, would she ask me to stop fighting?" Karen said, "Yes, and she asked me to bring that message to you." Valtheran sat down heavily. "How do I forgive the ones who took her from me? How do I stop a war that has burned too many bridges?" Karen's voice was steady. "By remembering why you fought to begin with, by choosing what you want to protect now." The king looked up, meeting Karen's eyes again. "You carry the weight of many souls, human. Do you think you can carry mine too?" Karen nodded. "Not alone, but together, we can bear it." After a long silence, Valtheran stood. "If your words are true, then bring me proof. Not just promises, but actions." Karen bowed his head. "I will." As Valtheran turned away, Karen felt hope stir inside him. The hardest hearts could sometimes be reached, not with swords, but with truth and memory. Outside the chamber, the sun dipped low. A new chapter was beginning, fragile but real. The war might be over, but the work to heal was just beginning. Kieran left the king's hall with a heavy heart. Valtheran's words echoed in his mind. Proof through action, not just promises. He knew it wouldn't be easy to convince all elves, especially those who had lost so much. Lindra and Thalen waited outside. Lindra's blonde hair caught the last rays of the sun as she spoke. "What now? How do we show them peace is real?" Karen looked at her, determined. "We visit Sorrow's Edge." They all knew the place well. Sorrow's Edge was the border where the fiercest battles had taken place. It was a scar on the land, and in the hearts of many. The fields were still blackened, and bones sometimes surfaced after heavy rains. Why go there? Thedalin asked. It's just pain and death. Because that pain must be seen, Karen answered. We must face what war has done before we can move forward. The next morning, the three traveled toward Sorrow's Edge. The journey was quiet, filled with thoughts too heavy for words. When they arrived, the ground was cracked and dry. Broken weapons and shields lay half-buried in the dirt. Karen knelt and touched the soil. This was once a field of life. Now it's a grave. Lindra looked at the sky, her voice soft. If only we had listened sooner. Thulin's dark gray hair fell over his eyes as he stared at a shattered bough. This place is where the last fight happened. Many died here, on both sides. Karen stood and pulled out Elira's letter once more. She believed peace was possible because she saw the cost of silence. He began to speak, his voice carrying over the empty fields. We come here not to celebrate victory, but to remember loss, to honor those who gave their lives, and to promise that their deaths were not in vain. As he spoke, a few elves approached quietly. One by one, soldiers laid down their weapons beside the broken ones on the ground. I was one of those who fought here, an older elf said, his voice thick with emotion. And I saw friends fall. If peace means honoring their sacrifice, then I stand with you. Others joined, some nodding, some wiping tears. Lindra stepped forward, her gold armor shining in the fading light. This is our chance to heal, not just the land, but our souls. Thedalin looked at Karen, hope in his eyes. You were right. Actions speak louder than words. Karen smiled softly. This is just the beginning. Peace is built by those who remember the past, but choose a different future. That night, around a small fire at Sorrow's Edge, the group shared stories of the lost. Laughter mixed with tears. Old wounds began to close, and new bonds formed. The war was over. Now, the hard work of healing had begun, and together they would walk the path forward, one step at a time. Days passed since Sorrow's Edge, and Karen stayed close to the Elven camp. The mood was changing. Soldiers who once gripped their weapons tightly now helped rebuild homes and tend to the wounded. Peace was not just a word anymore. It was a chance to live again. Karen worked alongside Lindra and Thedalin to organize teams. They cleaned the ruins, planted trees, and repaired broken walls. Each act was small, but it meant something. One afternoon, a group of young elves gathered around Karen. Their eyes were curious, some wary. One girl stepped forward, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. Why do you stay here? She asked. Humans caused this war. Karen looked at her gently. I stay because I believe we can be better. Because of Elira. He told them about the healer, how she cared for all, even those who seemed enemies. He spoke of her hope and courage. She showed me that peace is possible if we try, Karen said. I want to help build that peace. The children listened closely, some nodding. A few smiled. It was the first time Karen felt truly welcome. Meanwhile, Thedalin worked with the elders to rewrite old laws. They wanted rules that would protect both elves and humans, so nothing like this war would happen again. Lindra often came to Karen with news. The Queen wants to meet you tomorrow, she said one evening. Karen was nervous but ready. The Queen's palace was quiet when he arrived. She greeted him with a small smile. You have done much, she said. The camp speaks of your kindness and strength. Karen bowed. I only do what Elira asked of me. The Queen nodded. And you remind us all why peace is worth fighting for. She handed him a small scroll. This is a call to all kingdoms, humans and elves alike, to come together, to talk, to heal, and to build a new future. Karen took the scroll carefully. I will carry it with honor. Outside the palace, the sun set, casting warm light over the land. Karen felt hope growing stronger. He knew there would be hard days ahead. Not everyone would accept peace quickly. Old wounds would take time to heal. But together, humans and elves were starting to rebuild trust, and that was the first step toward a better world. As Karen walked back to camp, Lindra's words stayed with him. Sometimes, peace begins with a single heart willing to believe. And Karen's heart was ready. The scroll from the Queen had brought unexpected news. A meeting was set between the leaders of all the kingdoms, elves and humans alike. The goal was clear, to find a way forward together. But Karen knew it would be difficult. Old fears and anger still ran deep. Karen, Lindra, and Thalen traveled to the neutral city of Silverbrook where the gathering was held. The city was large and busy, with markets and towers reaching toward the sky. It was a place where many different peoples met, but tension was thick in the air. Inside the great hall, the leaders sat around a wide table. Humans, elves, dwarves, and others faced each other with wary eyes. The silence was heavy. The human king, a tall man with a firm voice, spoke first. "We have suffered losses too. Our homes burned, our families torn apart. But if we do not speak now, more will die." An elven elder, her silver hair shining under the torchlight, nodded. "We want peace, but trust is fragile. How can we believe it will last?" Karen felt his heart pound. He stood and spoke clearly. "We carry the pain of war with us, but we also carry hope. Elira, a healer, believed peace could heal even the deepest wounds. She asked me to bring her message here." He unfolded the letter and read a part aloud. "War takes what we love most. Peace gives us a chance to hold it close again." There were murmurs. Some leaders looked away, others nodded slowly. Lindra stepped forward. "We must build new paths, not repeat old battles. That means listening, even when it is hard." The human king looked at Karen. "What will you do if they refuse? If old hatred wins?" Karen took a deep breath. "Then we try again. And again. Peace is not easy, but it is worth fighting for." Thalen spoke next. "We are ready to work together, to share knowledge, to protect each other. If we can do this, war will be just a memory." The room grew quieter. One by one, leaders began to speak of small steps. Trade agreements, shared patrols, and cultural exchanges. It was not a perfect plan, but it was a start. Outside, the sun set behind the city walls, casting long shadows. Kieran looked around the hall and saw something new, a fragile hope taking root in many hearts. After the meeting, Karen walked with Lindra and Thalen through the city streets. "This is the first time I have felt real change," Lindra said softly. Karen smiled, tired but hopeful. "Change takes time. But tonight, we chose peace over war." And for the first time in many years, the future felt brighter. Months had passed since the gathering at Silverbrook. Slowly, the promises made were turning into actions. Trade routes reopened, borders grew safer, and messages of friendship traveled between kingdoms once divided by war. Karen stood on a hill overlooking the Elven city, watching as builders repaired homes and children played in the streets. The air was filled with a new kind of energy, not the tension of war, but the hope of peace. Lindra approached him, her blonde hair glowing in the morning sun. "Do you remember the first day you came here?" she asked. Karen smiled softly. "How could I forget? I was just a stranger, carrying a letter no one wanted to hear. And now," she said, her eyes shining. "Now," Karen said, "we are no longer enemies. We are something new. Friends. Allies." The Queen stood nearby, her silver eyes watching the city she had sworn to protect. She turned to Karen. "You have done more than anyone imagined. You changed the fate of our people." Karen shook his head. "It was not just me. It was Elira's hope, and all of us who believed in a better way." Thelen joined them, his dark gray hair tousled by the breeze. "There is still work to do. Old wounds don't heal overnight." "True," the Queen said, But every day we grow stronger, together. Karen looked toward the horizon. The sun rose higher, casting golden light over the land. It was a new dawn, not just of a day, but of a future shaped by peace. He thought of the ghosts at Sorrow Grove, of the King Valtharan's pain, and of every soul lost to the war. Their memory was a promise that the cost of peace was never forgotten. "We will protect this peace," Karen said quietly. "For them, for us, for the future." Lindra smiled. "And we will make sure the next generation knows the story, not of war, but of hope." As they stood together, the world around them seemed to breathe a little easier. The Elven War was over, thanks to one human who chose to change their fate. And in that choice, a new chapter began for all.